Okay, you two, what is up? Nick Wallenberg here. Day 5 coming in hotter than ever. Let's go. So, today's topic. It's another one of these subjects that's just so massive that let's just say you'll be in for a ride. I've been doing some test runs and I'm kind of all over the place. So this is going to be a roller coaster, but we're going to get through it together. And I promise you that new things are in the works. I've downloaded an editing software that I think is going to bump my quality up a bit. So look out for that. I haven't quite figured out how to utilize it yet, but my work weekend is here, and I plan to sink some time into that. So look out for that. But okay, to the topic. The topic today I want to talk about is motivation. And like I say, motivation is just this gigantic topic. You could ask 5 different philosophers for their take on motivation, and you could get 5 completely different answers, and they would all be useful and correct in some way. They would all have a grain of truth. And so, what do I want to do with it? Well, what I strive to do here at Worst Case Wallenberg is I want to break down this massive concept into a distillable chunk that is easily conceptualizable and useful in daily life when you're fighting for your life and you're just trying to get things done. What way can you think about motivation that is useful to you? So, okay, let me try and break this down. So, the type of motivation I'm talking about is one that's usually described in form of a binary. Either A, I have the motivation to go to the gym today. I have this feeling that I am compelled. I feel like I have the energy and the wherewithal. It makes sense. I'm going to go to the gym today. I have the motivation to get to the gym today. Or B, I don't have the motivation to get to the gym. Whatever it is, whether it's energy or purpose or whatever you might think, motivation, I just don't have it. And I think this conceptualization does make a lot of sense and is useful to describe in language, as it really does seem to describe a phenomenon that happens quite often, where either you do feel like you have motivation to do something or you don't. And there's not much in between. And while this is useful, I think it can lend itself to a lot of unfortunate misconceptions or obstacles that stop you from getting to the things that you really want to accomplish. For example, I've definitely fallen into this trap where you tend to think of one way you can misconceptualize this is you think it's some kind of immutable characteristic where there are some people who have it and other people who don't, and I must just be one of those people who don't have it, because I look at the people around me who are succeeding and they somehow have the energy to get up and do all these crazy things, or they can grind it out in these crazy jobs working 80 hours a week, and whatever that force that drives them to do that, I just don't have it. And I've definitely fallen into this misconceptualization. I look around and I see people doing crazy things, and I think, what do they have that I don't? And motivation is a word that I use to describe that. And so how can we counteract this kind of hopeless? How do I get that, whatever it is? And something that helped flipped my mind was just a simple reframing of the way motivation works. And I first heard this talked about by a guy named Jocko Willink. Now, some of you might have heard of Jocko. He's an ex-Navy SEAL who has quite a popular following. I think he has a YouTube channel. He has a podcast. He has hours and hours of content. He's fun to listen to, and I would highly recommend checking him out. So Jocko talks about motivation on many of his podcasts, and the way he describes it, or the way he described it the first time I heard him talk about it, kind of flipped a switch in me. He's used the word emotion to describe motivation. And I thought this was interesting because if you contextualize motivation in terms of an emotion, like happy or sad, it kind of fits the bill. It's this feeling that you have, you know it when you feel it, but you can't quite encapsulate it. And it kind of ebbs and flows, just like happiness and sadness. And it stands to reason that there might be ways you can structure your life to find pockets of it more readily. Just like happiness or sadness, there are definitely ways you can edge towards one or the other more often. And I thought this was, well, okay, that's really useful. So it prevents you from locking yourself into this mindset of, I need motivation in order to do something. What if you locked yourself behind, I need to be happy in order to do X? This would seem completely unreasonable. And I think when you categorize motivation in that same box, it makes a lot more sense as to why you should do something even if you don't want to, because it would be unreasonable to expect to feel motivated all the time. And Jocko Willink goes on further to another concept that helps seal this package into a nice, neat little package. And the word he uses is one he likes, and it makes sense from a Navy SEAL. He uses the word discipline. And he defines discipline as the ability to do difficult things despite lacking the emotion of motivation. And yeah, when I heard these two things put together, it was, at least for me, it was like a switch flipped. And I was like, oh. So people who do all these crazy things are just really good at this thing called discipline. And yeah, it turns out that's kind of true. But the best thing about discipline is that it is a learnable skill that you can improve at. It's just like a game. It's just like any kind of video game you can think of. You can grind it. You can do it over and over and over again and learn it and be better at it. And this is so much better, at least in how my mind conceptualizes things, than this fleeting thing called motivation, where you either have it or you don't. And if you're relying on that to get things done, you're going to have a hell of a time getting anything done. Whereas discipline, you get to classify yourself in this badass term, discipline, and say, okay, yeah, I don't want to take out the trash, but a disciplined person would take out the trash, and I'm disciplined, so I'm going to take out the frickin' trash. Yeah. And you can kind of reframe it that way, and it makes things a whole lot. And this isn't a fix-all, of course, but it's one of those little tiny things that you can nudge and you can work at to make that ends up adding up over time to making everything else much easier. It's one of those knobs you can turn that ends up making the rest of your actions a lot easier and simpler further down the line. So yeah, okay, let's go over what. Let's conclude this. Let's summarize this up. Yeah, you hear me thinking out loud. This has actually gone quite well. In my practice runs, I wasn't nearly this succinct. So okay, let's summarize this. So motivation, instead of it being this thing that ebbs and flows and this thing that you need to do but you don't know whether you have it, if you classify motivation as an emotion and put it into the same box as something like, say, happiness or sadness, it makes a lot more sense as to when you would expect it to come. You don't need to be happy all the time. You don't need to be sad all the time. You don't need to be motivated all the time to get things done. It's either there and it's not. And you temper motivation with the word discipline, where discipline is the ability to do things despite lacking motivation, and it's a buildable skill, a grindable skill that earns you EXP if you do it over and over and over again. So if you just keep on doing things that you don't want to do but that need to get done, and you're going to build discipline. And it's my hypothesis, and it's not far-fetched at all to believe that if you build discipline, it works well, it synergizes with motivation in order to get you to feel that feeling more often. So building discipline also increases the chance that you're going to feel motivation over time. That's my theory. It's been working for me so far, and I think I've got something there. I'm sure this is nothing groundbreaking. I'm sure someone else has thought the same exact thing, but it seems useful to me, and I hope it's useful to you. So let me know what you think about that. Does this make sense? Am I talking gibberish? Let me know. I'm more than happy to take criticism, and I won't believe you because it makes complete sense in my head. It just means that I haven't been able to explain it to you well if you don't get it. And sorry for that. This is definitely a candidate for a video I'd consider remaking down the road once I get a better grasp on it. But I think this went pretty well, so let me know. Yeah, that's it for video number 5. I will catch you guys all tomorrow in video number 6, hotter than ever. Okay, peace out. Oh God, weird outro. Jesus.